Now you're smart. Real smart. She brought that for John, and Jennifer brought it for John. Oh, is that right?
I see Phyllis over there plastering herself with Lido.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Sonia. Good, thank you. How are you doing?
Pictures. That's a sneak peek, isn't it, they're taking there?
What, dear?
That's a sneak peek.
Patterson will permit picture taking before the official launching. Hantsport and Area Historical Society, I bid you a most cordial welcome. The flags that you see flying in front of the house, the banners say Hantsport 100. To those of you who are nautical minded, I'm sure you would understand what they say. The flag, this one here, is known as the Prince of Wales flag. It was left here in 1860 by the Prince of Wales. He was en route from Windsor to St. John, New Brunswick. His yacht was lying off Hantsport. He came here by carriage, and when he left, he thought that this flag would be an appropriate reminder of his visit to the town. Those of the Hantsport residents will be interested to know that this flag was discovered in Truro. The late Ivan Pulsiver, who lived down on Avon Street Extension, used it for some years as a backdrop in what we now know as, or recall as, the Union Hall. When he moved to Truro, the flag went there, and then he aged and came to Masonic Home in Windsor. He called my wife, who had known him for many years, and he told her that they had found this flag in the attic of their home. So we went over to the Masonic Home, and he presented the flag to my wife. Tonight marks the completion of the Hantsport Historical Society Centennial project. We do, however, have 1,500 calendars to sell at $8 apiece. Some 6 years ago, the then president of our Historical Society, Bishop George Arnold, suggested that we should, as a project, put together a calendar. We thought it a great idea, but procrastinated somewhat during several meetings. Finally, and after some prodding by Bishop Arnold, and I guess that's what bishops do, is prod, the founding president of the Hantsport and Area Historical Society, the late Alistair R. Clark, took charge of this project. Ably assisted by Mr. St. Clair Patterson and Mr. Keith McGuinness, many old snapshots and photos of Hantsport and the surrounding area were gathered. Included in the calendar are 14 pages of the pictures that the calendar committee and other members of our society thought appropriate for this endeavor. Now also, there would be 16 pictures that we found both covered. Just like to take a minute to say with sadness that we remember Evelyn Harvey and Alistair Clark. Since last December, the calendar committee, consisting of Olive Clark, Catherine Stoddard, Dory McDade, Bishop Arnold, and St. Clair Patterson, worked diligently over several meetings to bring this project to its launching stage. We wish to acknowledge the professional secretarial work of Olive Clark and also the handiwork of St. Clair Patterson, whose launching skills you are about to witness shortly. Now, I know you're all interested in the condition of Mrs. Clark. My wife spoke to her just before she came down, and she is doing quite well and will be in hospital for about another week. Some of you may not know, but Mrs. Clark had a misfortune to fall last Thursday in her basement and broke her left leg. And I know that all the townspeople and her many friends throughout the province will wish her a complete and speedy recovery. Our appreciation to Mr. Barry McDonald and his committee, printers of the calendars, and other employees of Ken Mac Print, who are supposed to be with us this evening. If they are, they might raise their hands and be identified, but I don't see them there. But we had a wonderful time working with these people. And I might say that all members of the Hantsport and Area Historical Society can take pride in this undertaking. After the official launching of the Centennial calendar, which will be under the direction of Mr. St. Clair Patterson, assisted by Bishop Arnold, complimentary calendars will be presented to or mailed to His Worship Mayor Wayne Foker, Mr. John Wilson, the President of the Hants-West Historical Society, Mr. Robbins Elliott, President Wolfville Historical Society, and Mr. Elliott is not here, but Mrs. Thomas Allen will accept it on his behalf, and Mr. Allison McGee, who is here, and he's the President of the Kentville Historical Society. The presentations will be made by Mr. Patterson and Bishop Arnold. We will now have the launching of the Hantsport calendar. We would ask His Worship Mayor Foker to come forward to accept a calendar from Mr. Patterson. Mr. John Wilson is not here. And Mr. Allison McGee, President of the Kentville Historical Society. John Wilson, Now, ladies and and gentlemen, this isn't on the President's program, but he's been very kind in his many and varied acknowledgments of those who have had some part in the production of the calendar. But modestly, he has omitted, understandably, any reference to himself. So while Mr. McGee patiently waits, I would like to tell you all that through the courtesy of Mr. Patterson, who has naval connections, permission has been granted for our president to be referred to as captain. This is during the duration of this launching ceremony and for the time afterwards required for him to return to his home. Now, I wasn't going to say this, but because he made some crack about bishops being prodders and so on, I will say that in view of the fact that his term of office as captain ends at his getting home, then the admiral will take over and give the orders as usual. But we're all deeply indebted to him for the kind of leadership which the captain has given. He's had both feet on the deck, both hands on the wheel, one eye on the compass, and the other one on the chronometer, making sure that our ETA, our estimated time of arrival for this launching, would be met as it has been on this, the 27th of June. So on behalf of the members of the Historical Society, and also on behalf of all those who will derive, I hope, as much pride and pleasure in the calendar as we have who have been privileged to have a hand in it, but we do express our deep gratitude and appreciation to our captain of the time. Thank you. And now, Mr. McGee, I thank you for your patience in waiting, and it's my privilege to present to you one of our calendars.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on behalf of the King's Historical Society, and we wish that you have many more successes in the next 100 years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I should have learned that you don't make any smart remarks when the bishop is around. He always gets even. Anyway, I'll now call on His Worship Mayor Booker to bring greetings on behalf of the town. Before that, we'll ask Mrs. Thomas Allen to come forward to accept from Mr. Patterson a flag to be sent to Mr. Robbins Elliott and the local Historical Society.
The Historical Society gives us great privilege to be able to accept this calendar on behalf of the Woodville Historical Society. Thank you very kindly.
Mr. John Wilson is not here. I now call upon His Worship Mayor Fokker to bring greetings on behalf of the town of Hantsport. Mayor Fokker.
Good evening. I guess I would say Captain McDade, fellow Historical Society members, council members, ladies and gentlemen. When you want a job well done, it pays always to go with the expertise. To the calendar committee who worked so long and with such keen interest for literally years, we say with great sincerity, thank you so very, very much. The committee members, and I think they weren't repeating because there was some confusion, are Gar McDade, Dory McDade, Joey St. Clair Patterson, Olive Clark, Bishop Arnold, and Kay Stoddard. We are all proud of the job well done. I've seen the work on this calendar in process and at the various stages, and the end result, excellent, is the first word that comes to mind. This calendar reflects our heritage of following the sea, of land and social activities. It is a tribute to our town and those who brought it to fruition. This is destined to be a collector's item, so I advise each and every one of you to buy more than one. Our time capsule will be complete in 1995. It shall contain a video, Centennial coins, books, pictures, and of course a copy of this beautiful calendar. As mayor, I did have the foresight to have this capsule made large enough to hold one extra encyclopedic volume of information, Mr. Joey St. Clair Patterson. When it's opened in 2095, Joey will provide as much information as any books and more colorful at that. He's just too much for one century. We want to share him with the 21st. Thanks again to the Society, the Calendar Committee, and to each and every one of you for your support here this evening and always. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not to be outdone by her husband, I would ask Carolyn Folker, the chair of the Hantsport Centennial Committee, who will outline to you the celebrations to take place in 1995. Mrs. Folker, please.
This is election year now, we all know this.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here, and it's wonderful to see so many faces as to enjoy this very special occasion. I've never attended a luncheon before. And I must compliment the Historical Society on this wonderful calendar they've produced. They should very well be proud. It's of wonderful quality, and the pictures are just great. And I know how hard they worked on it because I've been invited to a couple of their sessions. And as Mr. McDade said, Mrs. Clark has had the misfortune to break her leg, and very sad she can't be with us tonight because her home has been Calendar Central for many months now. And on about our centennial, I hope all of our events will stir up as much interest as this has, as well as the Calendar Committee. Our many other subcommittees and committees are hard at work. And instead of going through the whole program with you this evening, Teresa McGinn, our public relations person, has produced, along with her Centennial Gazette presentation, she has produced this brochure, which the young ladies from the tourism department will pass out this evening. So I hope you'll all partake in as many of the events as you possibly can. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Folker. Now, I don't want to delay this too long, but when we are in a few minutes, you're all invited to visit the Churchill House, which most of you know is a monument to the Churchill family and to Hantsport's former days as the 5th largest wood shipbuilding town in all the world. You are also invited to visit the Marine Museum, which tells you of these great seafaring days. The museum is also a tribute to the late Brian R. Alexander, who contributed so much to the Hantsport Memorial Community Center and whose foresight made the museum possible. We had sent out several invitations to distinguished guests, and if they're here, we're delighted that you are here. We sent invitations to Heather Davidson, who is the curator of the Randall Museum in Wolfville, to Jocelyn Marchand, who is the superintendent of the Grand Prairie Park and who has spoken to the Historical Society on a couple of occasions, to Bria Stokesbury, who is the curator of the Old King's Courthouse Museum in Kentville, and to our own Dr. Alan Robertson, who is currently writing a book on the history of Hantsport. Invitation also to Mr. John Duncanson, well-known author of Falmouth, to Mr. and Mrs. Slater. Mr. Slater was a founding member of our Historical Society and provided much push to get it started. We also like to acknowledge former officers of the Historical Society. Ann Day, who was our first secretary. She's not far away. I'd like to raise her hand. To Trina Norman, who has come all the way from Barrington after much prodding by her second cousin, Dory, to get her to come. I think she was our second secretary. And I'd also welcome the Reverend Gordon Gower, who was the second president of the Hantsport Area Historical Society. cigar is sitting up front. Now, before you come into the house to enjoy the refreshments, we would like to extend our appreciation to Melba Lawrence and her committee for the delightful refreshments that you will receive. And our appreciation also to Mrs. Mark Johnson, who, through the courtesy of a couple of fellows that work in one of the offices down here who allow her to do these things, who did a great many favors for the Historical Society. And Mark, we thank you very, very much. Thanks also to Captain Lloyd McClellan of the tug Otiswag and to Lynn Patterson for the use of and hoisting the signal flags. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So you're now all invited to come into the house. Oh, the photographer from the CBC, my wife reminds me, is a fellow named Elliot. He lives down on William Street. So you're all invited to come into the house.
Just give me 1 sec here. So Mr. Madison, you just gotta look between the masks. Not
Just want to move it over a bit?
Yeah. Just so you don't have a mask on your. Okay, ready? Big smile.
Lake, it's full of water.
All right. Here we go.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.